Hello and welcome to the Last Words review of the year. I'm David Starkey, and tonight's menu includes sitting ducks, sacred cows, and the odd absolute turkey, though you'll be relieved to know we're not discussing EU enlargement. Joining me to dissect the feast are journalist Dominic Lawson, comedienne Sue Perkins, and writer John O'Farrell. Labour won an historic third consecutive election victory. The Tories elected their fifth leader in 8 years, and David Blunkett resigned for a second time in 12 months, in what, for me, was the political story of the year.
You're an embarrassment to the Prime Minister, Mr. Blunkett.
For an almost weepy Tony Blair, Blunkett's story was a tragedy. The Prime Minister even misquoted Shakespeare and forgot that Shakespeare was being ironic to call Blunkett a decent and honourable man. Dominic, was Mr. Blunkett a decent and honourable man? Is he?
I think the words indecent and dishonourable might more accurately describe him. Because one of the wonderful things is the language, as you rightly say, which is used. And two phrases kept coming up with Blunkett or Blair. One was, it was an honest mistake, and the other was he acted in good faith. I love these fantastic euphemisms for completely bloody dishonest.
And having sex
and doing it very best to trouser the
Yeah.
proceeds.
Yeah.
But what I was particularly fond of, so once upon a time, Tory scandals were about sex and Labour scandals were about money. Isn't it so new Labour that nowadays you have a scandal that involves sex and money in roughly equal proportions?
Well, no, it's not. It's very new Labour to take on, of course, everything to do with old Tory policy. So the fact that they're using, they can have sex and... he's had both. I mean, Blunkett's had sex scandals, and now this DNA company that he's been involved with and sort of shedding and all that sort of stuff. So, yes, how perfectly Tony Blair.
But isn't it also even more brilliant that of all things to put his money in, this man in the heart of a disputed paternity suit puts his money into a DNA testing company? It is beyond the scene writer's talent. But
I think it's a hard of hearing as well. I think he thought it was CNA. It was just, there was this chain of high street shops.
No. His clothes are much more expensive than CNA now. They're much more expensive.
CNA are due for a revival, John's right.
Absolutely. But there's a serious issue here, isn't there, John? I mean, Blair doesn't seem to know his Oscar Wilde, to have a minister resign once, well, that may be a misfortune, but to have him resign twice looks like carelessness and, above all, on the Prime Minister's part, doesn't it?
People feel that if someone resigns on a point of honour, then there has to be a certain amount of dignified sort of penitence. And David Blunkett needed to be out for a couple of years, and he didn't serve his time. This is why they were so keen for him to go. I also think there was a little bit of people out there in the public and in the press thinking, well, these girlfriends he has are quite pretty. That's not fair on the rest of us. The blind people aren't supposed to have the pretty ones.
But it's not simply posh totty, or what, really totty at Annabelle's is actually posh. It's really seriously posh houses, isn't it? This man, throughout, even when he'd been kicked out of the cabinet, is housed in Belgravia. I'm told, Dominic, you know more about this than I do, that houses there cost a cool $2 million. At least.
A log cabin cost $2 million in Belgrade.
A garage. A garage. But perhaps that's where we all think David Blunkett really belongs. Tonight, after every topic, there'll be a quiz for my guests and for you at home. What was David Blunkett's childhood nickname? Was it Plug, or Beardy, or Specky?
It obviously can't be Beardy unless he was very precocious.
Very precocious.
Incredible hormonal
Grew up
tufts.
fast. Yes.
I will go for Plug.
You've gone for Plug. Sue?
Well, I think it has to be Plug, although I would love it to be Beard. I'd love him to have been conceived by wolves and just be this incredibly feral, bearded monstrosity. But I think Plug... Why? I don't know. Possibly an incident.
Speculate on meaning?
It could be Plug from... Is it the Bash Street Kids?
The ugly child in the Bash Street Kids, the ugliest one. That's a possibility. But he went to school with other blind children, so the idea of being insulted because he was blind...
But maybe...
So come on, enough debate. Come on, John, you've got to decide.
I'll go for Specky for the ironic sort of cruelty of children calling him Specky when he was
Even at the schools of the blind.
Yes.
The answer, of course, is Plug. Congratulations, Dominic. 1 point, Dominic?
1 point.
2 points, Sue. I think Sue really followed, so she... Well,
No,
it was
but
all right.
I knew it. I just simply came second. Let's not fight.
1 point each to Dominic and Sue, and I really do need a referee. Talking about smart, 2005 has been a good year for new words on the street. At least, of course, I am told so. For, wearing my very best judge's wig, I'm proud to say I know none of them. But I do know a man who does, our very own Tim Shaw.
Any ideas what bustitution means?
No idea at all.
Right, it's about buses.
I have no idea.
You've been on a train before and you get
Yeah.
kicked off onto a bus?
Yeah.
Bustitution. Phishing. Phishing.
It's spelt wrong.
Have you guys heard of something called the internet?
Yes.
Pushing.
Well, phishing.
It's pushing, isn't it?
You get an email from a random company that claims to be a bank or claims to be something to do with money,
right.
and they're asking for your personal details.
Dog whistle politics.
Yeah, any ideas?
Do you know when builders whistle, dog
Yeah.
whistle, and they whistle at like attractive girls, and it's to do with that and disagreements about it.
It is
That's a better description what actually it genuinely means. Using language or policies to appeal to a specific audience of swing voters without disturbing the rest of us.
Oh right, okay.
VoIP.
No idea at all.
VoIP.
VoIP. Well, I know what VoIP is.
What's a VoIP?
I don't know. It stands for something.
Oh, it's a VIP, but with an O in it.
Oh, it's a voice over internet protocol, which everybody's doing now.
Chugger.
Oh, can't remember.
Chugger, like a train, chugging along.
I have no idea.
Yes.
A chugger is a cross between a mugger and a charity worker.
Oh, those people.
Yes.
Yes,
Go on, shout it.
Chugger! You chugger!
Well, I don't know about you, but I know an old-fashioned Anglo-Saxon word that I'd like to use after that lot. But we'll be back cleanly after the break, when we'll round up this year's natural and royal disasters. See you in a few minutes. Welcome back. Still with me, after having learned a few surprising new words during the break, are journalist Dominic Lawson, comedian Sue Perkins, and writer John O'Farrell. The year's been a bad one for natural disasters, as the four horsemen of the apocalypse, war, pestilence, famine and death, together with a few more modern additions, have stalked the land. But these real-life horrors aren't enough for the grant-greedy scientists and the doom-mongering journalists who encourage them. They've threatened us variously with avian flu, MRSA, and SARS. In Britain, avian flu was so far claimed, one sick parrot, and SARS touted as the first global pandemic of the 21st century, 800 deaths worldwide. Sad for those concerned, but, well, scarcely apocalyptic. So, I mean, aren't really these kind of stories just a kind of, you know what, disaster movie, lightly disguised as items in a 24-hour rolling news bulletin?
Yes, I mean, you can get scare stories now on pretty much every channel. You turn on a herd of wild school children has savaged a budgeon security guard. Or,
This is after having caught avian flu
Yes.
and actually with a temperature of 402, is that it? Yeah.
Exactly. And actually, you know, there are, of course, we should be have our eyes open to the fact that there are global pandemics, and such as the big one in 1918, etc., etc. But you're more likely, I think, to get ill going to a hospital and catching an MRSA locally than you are from you know, going on holiday and, you know, catching something. It's also a thing about we don't like to travel because, you know, in China they've got things like, you know, they've got birds stacked in cages and they'll give us horrible
Filthy
viruses.
food and water's dangerous
and
abroad.
yes.
It's just really going
Foreigners,
back,
you know.
isn't it? More sophisticated version of that.
Yeah, I do think so.
I think Sue's right. I mean, and as you pointed out, 800 people died of SARS. 165,000 people die every day in the world, in the normal course of events. 800 during the whole course of the epidemic. It's a pinprick, it's a nothing. Or take the human form of mad cow disease. 108 people died. 108, it is tiny. And virtually the entire British agriculture grinds to a halt. The balance of payments is ruined. Every cow is slaughtered.
Yes, exactly. Kill the animals. The animals
It
fall.
reeks with burning
Yes.
animals.
Yeah.
One of the most disgusting sights I've ever seen was beautiful English countryside with these horrible death pits streets with
Yeah.
smouldering
And
cattle.
all
It's obscene,
absolutely
pointless,
unnecessary.
useless.
Absolutely
And filling us with pills that we don't need, so our bodies become a junk shop for pharmaceutical companies. And actually all it does is it creates superbugs and viruses that will get stronger in
And
order to
huge
combat.
profits for scientists, for companies, and for newspapers. But there's another thing too, isn't there, John? I suspect that the whole thing is predicated on the fact that we are real dumb. I mean,
Dumb?
let's real dumb.
Yeah, exactly. This
Let's
is the
take
whole
global
point.
warming.
Well-
One day we're told that it will reduce Britain to this, it's lower than Labrador, and then the following day we're told cactuses will be growing in Cambridgeshire.
Well, clearly there is a rise in global temperatures, and it's hard to gauge exactly how bad that is. It's got so bad, apparently, that Eskimos now have 25 different words for water. But
Before it was just snow,
yes,
wasn't
right.
it? Yes.
But the fact that we're stupid, I think, has been shown by this whole bird flu thing. We had all these scare stories about we're all going to get bird flu. So people went along to get their jabs. People who didn't normally go went along to get their jabs for normal flu. Absolutely no connection between them. It's like there's been an outbreak of bird brain. Everyone's been really stupid and thinking, oh, bird flu, I must get my flu jab. And of course, there's no relation whatsoever. People are sort of react too quickly to these scare stories. And the real crises happen over sort of a long period of time when the sort of newspapers are not going to allow the narrative shape of that story to extend 10, 20, 30 years. They want it all now. So global warming is this year's fashion. It'll be the next mad cow disease or whatever next.
Dominic, how far do you think that the press is simply complicit in this? I mean, every one of these seems to me to have been a piece of press orchestration, whereas a sensibly critical press would be holding back and saying, what's the name of all
I think
this?
there are two things going on. Obviously, the press has a role in it, but there is also a thing, which is that the human condition is to fear the end of the world. I mean, religions are built on this fear of the world ending.
So this is the new millennium fever,
yes, but
yes.
it's in a very secular form, although some people get it, and they get religion because of it. In America, that kind of Armageddon religion is very powerful and popular. And in this country, because we are fundamentally irreligious people, we think that it will happen through man's own folly. In fact, it will happen because it is inevitable the world will come to an end, but it will come to an end many, many thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of years later than the Daily Express thinks it will.
I think all this kind of thing isn't simply irrational, it's also un-American. One of my favourite quotes is that Americans think they have a constitutional right to die in a state of perfect health. So, quickly recovering our mental health, we're back to our quiz. Are you more likely to win the jackpot on the lottery, be hit by an asteroid, or catch avian flu? Sue?
I think you're probably more likely to win the lottery.
Win the lottery. John?
Hit by an asteroid.
Hit by an asteroid.
Most likely.
Most likely of the
The
three.
lottery.
The lottery. Well, I'm really worried to say John, with that sort of slightly spaced out look, is absolutely right. It's being hit by an asteroid. Strange but true. Crash helmets all round, chaps. This was also the year of the rebranding of Prince Charles, and only 2 or 3 decades too late, he made an honest woman of Camilla. Well, sort of. For, out of deference to the Neanderthal wing of the Church of England, their future supreme governor suffered the indignity of being remarried in a mere civil ceremony, and they could not even get that right, since a cock-up over the venue meant that the thing had to be shifted at the last minute from Windsor Castle to the town hall across the street. Very, very bicycling monarchy. Not surprisingly, the Queen refused to turn up, though she did attend the reception afterwards. So, allegedly, Charles is trying to rehabilitate Camilla, so why second best? Why Duchess of Cornwall and not Princess of Wales?
I think what's refreshing about, what seems to be refreshing about Camilla, she doesn't really care. And there's something quite nice about the energy of the woman. And she says, I don't care that I'm not mentioned in prayers. I don't mind where we get married. And it cuts
At least she's
through.
not mentioned in curses anymore.
Yes, indeed. But the ephemera, the ephemera surrounding the monarchy, to do with constitutional inaccuracies.
Stop. What is the use of a monarchy without protocol? How can you have a monarchy without Royal Highness's toe-clicking?
He rides roughshod. This is a boy-child man who has a dressing-up box full of right-wing costumes that he can bring out at any particular time.
That was actually, to be fair, Princess Michael was very upset about that. She said, "That was my dad's armband. You leave that back where it belongs."
But actually, I think we transgress into somewhat dangerous territory, even on Princess Michael.
But this thing about
Dominic.
the protocol, I mean, it is not that she isn't the Princess of Wales. She is de facto the Princess of Wales. It's not that she
legally, fully and absolutely.
Legally, fully and absolutely, and she will be legally, fully and absolutely Queen. But it is very political. Buckingham Palace, and maybe Clarence House too, are frightened, obviously, of the peasants revolting, and therefore they're saying, well, we won't say it. And if we don't say it, maybe the idiots won't realise.
Nobody will notice.
I think they missed a trick.
Gently, killy Queenie. John, in the 1920s, the royals were known as our very best film stars. Now, do you think we're now left with them as their only function to be, Britain's top tourist earners?
They're still part of the brand of the UK, but the trouble is that Princess Diana, like all great stars, died young, and so we remember her like James Dean and Marilyn Monroe as she was in her prime. And poor Camilla is sort of compared to Diana, and it's not a game she can ever win.
You feel she'd survive a car crash?
She
would walk through a fire unscathed. That one.
But remember, but of course, Diana's son, William, who bears a distinct physical resemblance, who does have star quality, is second in line to the throne.
Yes.
And if Prince Charles, despite his acute hypochondria, dies of some, illness, before he's much older, or falls off his last polo pony, you will have suddenly a very glamorous monarchy. And I don't think that can be completely excluded. And of course, he finds it quite difficult because he's aware that actually no one's that much interested in him. And he's
Prince
aware.
Charles, we're talking about Prince Charles.
I'm sorry, yes, Prince Charles is well aware of that. And that was part of the problem with Diana, that he was intensely jealous, because when they went on parade together, no one would even look at him. He was the man who wasn't there. And he found, whereas Camilla understands that he has that frailty and is quite prepared to play the sort of silent housewife, doesn't bother her at all, the supportive wife, which Diana actually, to be fair, wasn't prepared to play. No. But as I said, as William gets older, more and more people will be enthused by the idea. And that will give the monarchy.
But do you really think this is a runner, Dominic? I mean, after all, William is showing Daddy's tendency to go bald. I mean, do you actually think you can have a bald glamour
these There are marvellous treatments these days.
I think you should get long hair extensions, just huge, big hair extensions, or shave it off.
Hair extensions, well, I always thought that the whole purpose of a coronet was to cover up those problems. Anyway, our royal quiz question is this. What sobriquet, that's insults to you and me, did Camilla attract on her first visit to the old US of A? Just another unemployed foreigner. Frump Tower or an escapee from the choirboy pew of Westminster Abbey? John, as a well-known royalist.
Frump Towers has a nice ring to it. I'm going to go with that one.
Frump Towers. Dominic?
I think I remember seeing that in some of the more scabrous American reports, yes. So I think
Towers,
I'll back John, particularly after his great asteroid success. I'm going to go with the winning side.
You're going to go with the winning side, so...
I'm also going to jump on that pony.
You're going to jump on that pony.
But enough of that. So, yes, Frump Towers, please.
Well, this herd-following instinct does you no good. You are indeed all right. The only trouble is she had to endure all three of them. She was the choirboy too, as well. So, well, there we are. You've all scored, I think, again, I'm going to split this. You've all scored a third of a point. Feeble, feeble, feeble. The July bombings brought the issue of Islamic terrorism home with appalling force. But Londoners, by and large, took it in their stride, as they'd done before with the IRA and the Blitz. Mayor Ken Livingstone found the right words, and even the whipped House of Commons did the right thing and threw out the proposed 90-day detention for terrorist suspects. Only the government continues to get it wrong. Humour is the typical British defence against those whom we find threatening. But not for much longer, as Rowan Atkinson continues to insist, if the race and religious hatred bill becomes law. So just what sort of material can we get away with now, but might be deemed an incitement to race or religious hatred if the new law is passed? Well, some or indeed all of the following, I suspect.
If you want to turn somebody gay, put them in the Catholic Church. 12 years. Does it make me such a homo? What choice do I have? What am I staring at all day long but a naked, sinewy, hot guy on a cross who needs a hug? He's ripped, he's torn, he's nailed. There's a little bit of blood. Of course I'm turned on.
There are two Palestinians, and they're both granted US citizenship. And they're very pleased, and they decide they're going to meet up a year later to see how well they've settled in, how well they've been assimilated into American society. So they do. And one of them says, well, I think it's just great here. I love it. I'm just on my way to take my son to play in the local soccer team. My daughter and I are going to catch a baseball game later. And then probably on the way home, we'll have a McDonald's or go and see a movie in a fantastic multiplex. I love it here. And the other one says, fuck off, towelhead.
What's this? It's Jesus biting his nails.
An Englishman, a Welshman and an Arab are discussing their family. And the Englishman says, I've got 10 sons. One more, I'm going to have a football team. And the Welshman says, I've got 14 sons. One more, I'm going to have a rugby team. And the Arab says, I have 17 wives. One more, I'll have a golf course.
So, you are a comedienne, this wonderful, lovely old-fashioned word. Do you regard religion as a no-go area?
I don't think anything should be a no-go area, and I think the fact that they've focused on comedy as being, I mean, just when has sort of comedy been, you know, the kind of crucible? It's like it's something we should be. My point is, I guess, that the things happening on a daily level on the street, in terms of, you know, young men being beaten because they're gay, and young Asian men
brown
being
or white.
Exactly. Now, that is really what the bill should be addressing, and does indeed address. I think this is another kind of media story that doesn't really exist, the idea that they're trying to take our jokes away from us. If that wasn't bad enough, they're now trying to steal humour, and you know, everyone has a right to free speech.
Yeah, I have to say that I think what Sue said is right, but the origins of this bill were entirely to do with the last general election. The Labour Party was having huge problems in Muslim sections of the inner cities who were outraged by the war in Iraq. And this was a naked attempt to show, oh, we really care about you. We really care about you. And so on those grounds alone, I think it deserves to fail.
But the idea that the government are trying to stop people telling jokes, or, you know, that Blair wants to stop people impersonating vicars. What do you think he's been doing for the last 8 years? That's what Tony Blair's whole act out the window. So I think it's nonsense, the idea that it's about comedy. Rowan Atkinson's jokes are never about making anyone hate anyone. They just make me hate watching Mr. Bean videos.
Yeah. I mean, he bumps into anybody of any
But there is a serious issue.
Yeah.
If you pass a law, it is not up to the politicians to decide how it's enforced, even if you have the Attorney General allegedly controlling prosecutions. The police and the courts do that. And the whole history of this kind of thing has been legislation creep. Yeah. We, as it were, have a notionally well-intended law, and then characteristically we plate it against...
We have a law on the incitement to racial hatred.
Yeah,
I don't remember any comedians being prosecuted on that, and the same for religion.
But that's the point, you see, that this law exists, and the reason why we have a law in this area, race, is that you can do nothing about it. You're born with it. It's an imposition upon you. The point about a religion is you choose to have that religion. It is your choice. And if you cannot defend your views, then you need to think about what views you actually hold.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be back after the break when I'll be arguing for England and discussing how even a queen can't get married in church these days. See you shortly. Welcome back. Still with me, and still in the same state of wedlock or lack thereof as they were before, are journalist Dominic Lawson, comedian Sue Perkins, and writer John O'Farrell. The 6th of July was a day of triumph for all but a handful of Scrooges and Gradgrinds like a certain D. Starkey. London won the 2012 Olympics. It was a classic British victory, against the odds and against the French, since Paris was the hotly favoured runner-up. But hang on, the actual sporting victories were won by teams representing things called England and Wales. We all seem to be mixed up about what our national identity is, and especially the English. So much so that it took the new Ugandan-born Archbishop of York, John Sentamu, to tell the English to snap out of it, stand up straight, salute St. George's flag, and take a pride in being English once more. John, did your heart swell with nationalistic pride about our great sporting achievements?
Indeed.
And if so, for which nation?
Well, I was very proud when Liverpool came down from 3-0 down to win the European Championship. It filled me with British patriotic fervour.
Which nations, darling, which nation is Liverpool?
Liverpool,
Many nations
Liverpool, all those English players like Dudek and Cinema Pongole and Cisse, you know, they made me really proud that we showed true British pluck to come back from 3-0 down. I was very proud about the Olympics, so I think that was a unusual sporting achievement, because normally we get ourselves all excited. We can really do it this time. We're really going to win, and then we're disappointed. It was the exact opposite this time. It's like, we're not going to do it. The French are going to do it. My God, we've won. That was completely the opposite to what we've done.
This time we won heavy committee lobbying, which I'm not sure is going to be a future Olympic sport, is it?
No, I know. Of course, we're pleased we've won it, you know, for the time being. But give it a year, and we'll all be whinging and moaning.
Mr. Blair did some very good lobbying, and Chirac.
He's good at that.
Yes, and Chirac was far too grand. Unfortunately, of course, it will bankrupt London. It will be a complete disaster. And Mr. Blair will be long gone and not in a position to pick up the pieces.
I also think it's incredibly un-British to win something. I grew up, and the sporting heroes of the day were Martin Bell, who would regularly come 17th in the downhill.
Tim Hinman, now he's a true Englishman, a proper Englishman, isn't he? A good loser, a really, really good loser.
Rubbish sports people that are taken, you know, to our hearts and perhaps perform at the Ilfracombe Pavilion pantomime every year.
I've got a little teaser for you. I like teasing you at the moment, it seems, this evening. H.G. Wells said that it was a mark of the true glory of an Englishman that we'd no national dress. Don't you think we should correct this? Would you like to speculate on, you know, when you next go to Liverpool, what glorious items you should be wearing?
We do have the hoodie is our national dress, and you know, Robin Hoodie, as he started it off.
It needs an element of traditionalism, like some Morris dancers' bells and a Burberry cap.
No, we have I think the Burberry outfit is adapted,
especially
into
worn by chavs.
Yeah, so now you wouldn't. Robin Hood was around now. He wouldn't be allowed into Blue Water Shopping Centre because he'd have his hood up. And same with Little Red Riding Hood. She would not be allowed to go.
They don't allow Lincoln Green and Lakeside Thurrock anymore.
I know. Or, you know, Friar Tuck's outfit, again, that's completely ruled out.
Dominic, we're treating it frivolously. It's typical Channel 4, isn't it? Especially if we mentioned Englishness.
The Englishness is very odd in terms of the English cricket team, but of course it is actually the England and Wales cricket board. And there was, in fact, two Welsh players, Geraint Jones and Simon Jones. Of course, they were both Jones. And there was the St George's flag, and the poor bloody Welsh, who supplied two of the best members of the team, never got a look in.
Well, for heaven's sake, they fought for Henry V at Agincourt. They've only got themselves to blame, haven't they? It goes back a very long way. But come on, I'm trying. Even you aren't taking it seriously. Come on, even the ex-editor of the Sunday Telegraph is not taking nationhood seriously.
There was an interesting point with the rise of the St George's flag, that I think that the English have become aware, increasingly, although it's always been the case, that the Scottish and maybe the Welsh define themselves to a huge extent in antipathy and opposition to the English. And so I think a lot of English people have suddenly decided, OK, fine, OK, we will celebrate the fact that we are English because you are celebrating the fact that you're not English. And I think to that extent, the whole process of devolution and assemblies and the sense that there are more votes in Scotland than there are in England, that there is the West East Lothian question, which means that Scottish MPs can vote on English matters, but English not on Scottish, has caused a certain amount of resentment. And I think there may be an element of that built-up resentment in the parading of the St George's flag. And to that extent, of course, it's a very interesting and important issue.
Dominic, I'm horrified. What you seem to be saying is that England is becoming a nation just like any other. Once upon a time, we were top nation and we were different. So I weep. Anyway, it's time for our quiz, which I'm sure will make everybody weep. But here we are, an Olympic quiz. Which sport might feature in the London Olympics for the first time? Synchronised tiddlywinks, women's boxing, or squash? Dominic?
Women's boxing.
Women's boxing. Sue?
Women's boxing.
I'll go with women's boxing again.
Damn them. They are right. All three of them are right. It actually is not a done deal yet, but a little rumour tells me already the lads' mags are proposing to double their photo coverage of our chesty British champions. Once upon a time, a long time ago, homosexuality was the love that dared not speak its name. Now, it's the affection that won't shut up. Same-sex civil unions are now being entered into for the first time in Britain to a collective yawn of boredom from all but the happy couples. problems. The consolation is that gay divorce can't be far behind, and just watch that. Typically, the C of E is sat on the fence, no doubt, as I once said to Jeffrey Archer, because it enjoys the sensation so much. The Yanks, that's to say, the Anglican Yanks, are passionately pro, and the beardy Archbishop of Canterbury is sympathetic. But a fearsome alliance of African prelates disagrees. Schism threatens. Disestablishment looms. The Roman Catholic Church, as usual, has presented a more united front, in public at least. Dominic, are you happy with the kind of hard line taken by the new German pontiff regarding gays joining the priesthood?
Yes, I am. I think what he said is simply to reiterate what has been church doctrine for as long ago as anyone can remember, that...
if not church practice.
Yes, well, that's very different.
Well, it's always different. And what he says is that men with strong homosexual tendencies, or who've been very recently...
just a teensy little bit.
Should not be entered into the priesthood. Now, the point is that the view is also that men with very strong heterosexual tendencies should not be in the priesthood. And the reason is...
Providing they can suppress them.
Yes, but if they have very strong tendencies, what it means is they're not able to suppress them, because what the church believes in is that priests should be celibate. The problem, however, is that if you have seminaries where you have a very large number of homosexual male priests, it is much more difficult to stop sexual relations happening, because clearly there is a strong possibility of sexual attraction within that seminary. And there has been a huge problem in America of precisely that sort. They have these very, very camp seminaries where everyone calls each other by girls' names, and it is frankly not proper for the Catholic Church to
Dominic,
think that is satisfactory.
It's lovely that you describe this as an American problem. Now, I know you're the kind of chap whose favourite bedside reading is authorised biographies of archbishops. Can I suggest that you read the authorised biography of Cosmo Gordon Lang, who was the archbishop who invented the family monarchy in the 1920s. This is his first moment at a seminary of the Church of England, and what happened was this. He was put round a table. He was terribly frightened. There were all these young men wearing cassocks, and the bishop in charge, the Bishop of Lincoln, turned to him, placed his hand firmly on his knee and said, "My dear, these young men are not as holy as they look." And then, squeezing harder, the official biographer says, "And I, my dear, am the naughtiest of them all. So why on earth do gays want to join a church that reviles them?"
Well, I think the question
They're
is,
mad, aren't they?
Why does a church want to exclude even more people? Is it church is not popular, attendances are down. You'd think that they'd want to, draw from as wide a pool as possible.
No, I'm really going to pin you on the question.
Do it.
I mean, but after all, lots and lots of gay people seem to be queuing up to join churches that don't want them. There are gay Anglican societies, gay Catholic societies. Why?
Well, I think gay people want to be in because they...
Is it sadomasochism?
Yes, I think it is.
Particularly camp form of sadomasochism.
Yeah, absolutely, because I think that's part of the gay identity, is because you
submission, yes.
You want to kind of be involved with people who hate you.
Yes.
You want to be included even though you know you're sort of abnormal, and that's why it's a very strange time, I think, for gay people. Now we're being assimilated into kind of mainstream culture with civil partnerships and all that, because you don't know where you stand. On one hand, of course, you want to belong to society as a whole and you want to integrate. On the other hand, you don't want to quite give up your individuality.
I've noticed you're sort of slightly steering clear of this dangerously camp discussion. But
no, I'm just trying to get a word in edgeways, but I'm being very polite.
Listening to it with fascination. Yes. But isn't this obviously an area where the government should intervene? Discrimination is being outlawed in every area you can. I'm being really, really serious.
No, I'm happy to come back with some serious points that no government has ever done as much to roll back prejudice against homosexuals as this one. We've had the reduction of the age of consent. We've had gays allowed in the army, to have shrieks of horror from those in the services, from saying, whatever next, we'll have gay sailors and homosexuals in MI5. What a thought. And we've had all sorts of prejudice, legislation leading the pushing back of prejudice.
Political broadcast on behalf of the Labour Party.
And I think that the government aren't in the business of telling the Church of England how to run their affairs.
No, but sorry, why not? What we've done... No, look at this carefully. I'm being really serious. We are now stopping discrimination in clubs. You're no longer going to have either a straightforwardly heterosexual club or a straightforwardly homosexual club. Why is the Church allowed to practice this strange form of clubbery?
Well, first of all, the British government does not have control over the Anglican Church in Africa and America. So the idea of Tony Blair telling the Anglicans what they do.
It does in Britain.
But I just don't think it's practical. But the
here we
government's done a
are.
lot.
For once, New Labour has started talking about practice.
New Labour,
we must be near the end of a government. Right. Our quiz involves, of course, marriage, or for the purpose of this question, civil union. Now, I want you to listen carefully. A man in this country cannot legally be joined with one of the following, and it is only one, please. His 16-year-old male cousin, his 16-year-old female niece, his adoptive sister, or a registered transsexual who has acquired the opposite gender, in this case, having become a woman. And it's one and one only, Sue.
I'm going to say 16-year-old niece.
John?
That's what I'm going for as well.
I think I shall go for the transgender.
Not here, don't say it here, not on this programme. You're being taped, for
well,
God's sake, man.
Well, for once I'm afraid variety is wrong, and I am going to, I think, out of pure justice, to award 2 points each to Sue and John. It is niece. It is niece. A man may not marry his niece. The rest are okay, if a little odd, and I suppose if you're a little odd too. A number of other news stories grabbed the headlines over the year. But putting the facts to those headlines isn't easy, as Tom Price discovered when he talked to you.
Who is she?
I haven't got a clue.
She looks a bit like that girl from Corrie.
If you were Jude Law, might you be tempted?
Is it the nanny?
It's the nanny. What's her name?
I don't know.
Daisy Wright is her name. This is the lady who tempted Jude Law away from Sienna Miller. And I think if you take a close look at that, it makes perfect sense. Have you any idea what story this headline relates to?
George Bush.
George Bush, good guess. It's a good guess. It could do, couldn't it? It's not the case, actually. How would you feel if I suddenly squirted you in the face with this microphone?
I'd be very annoyed.
Would you call me a jerk?
Yes.
That's what Tom Cruise did.
Okay,
That's what it was. Tom Cruise got squirted in the face by a microphone and he called him a jerk. This is a headline from April.
Yes.
What do you think it's referring to?
No idea.
The flat this man used to rent in Bonn in Germany was put up for sale.
The Pope.
That's it. It's the Pope, Pope Benedict XVI, known as God's Rottweiler. He was also a member of the Hitler Youth. He speaks 10 languages. He's written over 40 books and is said to be an accomplished pianist with a preference for Beethoven.
Marvellous.
Do you have any idea what news event this headline, "I'll never sleep with boys again," relates to?
I have the feeling it has to do with Michael Jackson.
During one of the highest profile trials in history, Michael Jackson was accused of being on the precipice of bankruptcy, and on one occasion he arrived in court wearing his pyjamas. Nonetheless, he was acquitted of child molestation charges earlier this year, and thus he vowed never again to share his bed with boys. Trouble and strife.
Who split up with their wife this year?
A lot of people. Yeah, you're going to have to... I'll give you a clue, right? It was the most famous left hook of the year.
Oh, I remember. EastEnder bloke smacked in the mouth by wife who was Rebecca, some editor of The Sun.
Give me that. Give me a high five. You got it. Yes, yes, yes. Satisfaction guaranteed. What is this about?
It's not this thing they developed to stimulate women, guarantee them an orgasm?
What are you That's exactly what it's about. It's a machine whose inventor claims has a 91% chance of making women reach orgasm. Right? It's not me. Do you know who this slightly depressed-looking man is?
A guy who's probably just been dumped by his girlfriend for very good reasons.
I think I don't know who he is, but that's because he was the mystery man.
That's right.
But he was a pianist, wasn't he, as well?
He was a bit of a penis, yeah. Do you know who these ladies are?
I do.
Who are they?
Paula Radcliffe and Carol Thatcher.
Excellent, well done. What have they got in common?
Have they both been on a celebrity show?
No, that's not it. They both weed on national television.
There you go.
That's their club.
That's their club.
Would you like to be in that club?
No, thank you.
Well, we've all done it, haven't we?
No.
At least on politics, dumb Britain doesn't seem to be as dumb as all that. We'll be back after the break when we'll be discussing the Kate Moss powder diet and giving you our very own Ken Corder's preview of festive viewing. Back soon. Welcome back, and still with me, having quickly slipped out of their cassocks, are journalist Dominic Lawson, comedian Sue Perkins, and writer John O'Farrell. Christmas is a time of excess. Indeed, 2005 has been a year of excesses. Perhaps it's the Chinese year of the whole hog. Following the liberalisation of the licensing laws in November, we've become, according to the Daily Mail at least, a nation of all-day binge drinkers. We're also putting away food, especially the wrong sort of food, in unprecedented quantities. Models, of course, don't eat, but they do make up for it in other, less nutritious ways, as Kate Moss's powder-sprinkled mirror revealed. The undisputed patron saint of excess, George Best, died in November. Ironically, he breathed his last 24 hours after all-day drinking was introduced. Sad. John, is it the right of the individual to eat, drink and be merry and die in whatever way they choose?
Well, of course, as someone who lives in an area surrounded by pubs, one of the reasons I chose it, of course, but now I've got a
Which
bit
you
older.
never frequent, of course.
Yes. Now I find things have changed, and instead of people urinating on my gate post at 11:30 at night, they do it at 2:30, so it doesn't change that much. I think just tax it to high heaven, and that'll deter the poor people, which is what we really want to do.
Ah, true Gordon Brown man. So were you really happy with this sort of new Puritanism?
I was a fervent smoker for 17 years, and then ritually putting 10, 20p on a price of cigarettes did nothing to curb my habit. It took a strange hypnotherapist called Sean to finally help me kick the habit. That's a whole different story. I don't think, for me personally, as an addict as I was then, taxation didn't matter 2 jots. I do think
You'd have paid anything.
Exactly, because it's, I was addicted. And I think what's interesting, however, is the way that this government likes to shift blame onto the individual. Of course, the individual, being an individual, can't do much to sort of sort out the cultural drive of society. So the government, of course, sanctioned licensing laws. Why then should you then blame the individual for going drinking more?
Because it reaps enormous amounts of money out of it. So it's complicit in the whole business. And John's suggestion would actually make it even more complicit. But Dominic, we go much further, don't we? We don't just blame people. We now actually make them suffer directly, or at least you do in Suffolk, where 3 health authorities have decided that if you're that little bit overweight, as perhaps you may be and perhaps me may be, if your hip goes or your knee goes, you jolly well have to slim off.
There is an obsessive interest in weight. And whenever I look at those body mass index figures, I'm so depressed because I'm so many stones over what it should be. I realise this is unattainable. But I have a great-grandfather who actually died because he was so immensely fat that they couldn't get to the point they were trying to get to. It took so long going through these waves.
You also
and waves.
have, of course, a father who famously lost weight and made a fortune out of the resulting diet.
He lost almost half his body weight.
Unfortunately, Nigel Lawson is not the answer on our next quiz, but it is as follows. Which vice has the worst effect on your life insurance premium? Being obese, being a heavy smoker, or being a regular cocaine user? John, what do you think?
I would guess it was a heavy smoker, because I've never seen a bit of my form saying, are you a cocaine user or are you obese? So I must be with the wrong company. So I go for heavy smoker.
You say with regret, yes. Sue?
Well, obviously, do you take ketamine of a weekend? Yeah. No, I'm a heavy smoker, absolutely. They penalise the heavy smokers.
Well, I think I have, therefore, to oppose and go for obesity, my personal blight.
Well, I am delighted to say that absolutely none of you is right. It is, in fact, cocaine. Insurers do not like Class A drugs at all. So it just remains for me to announce the winner of our not-so-topical quiz. In last place, with 2 1/3 points, is Dominic, and joint winners with 4 1/3 points each are John and Sue. If any of you at home got more points, you should give serious consideration to getting out more. Thanks to my guests, Dominic Lawson, Sue Perkins, and John O'Farrell. The last word will return on the 9th of January if we survive Christmas. And remember, you can email us at thelastword@channel4.com, or you can visit our website, channel4.com/lastword. Cyber elves are waiting in anticipation, and little bits of confetti will fall over your computer screen. If you're wondering what television is worth watching this festive season, our regular previewer, Ken Corder, has the answer. Good night and a very happy Christmas to you all.
My name's Ken Corder, and I hate Christmas. That's just an excuse to sell a load of Tamagotchis, isn't it? Best thing about Christmas for me, chance to crack open a breezer and put up my feet in front of the telly box. So here's what to watch out for this Christmas Day. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't stand the Queen's speech. I mean, what is that about? My husband and I have been walking the corgis and I got a rod up my arse. I've never watched it, but I imagine that's what it's like. So I'm loving Channel 4's alternative Queen's speech. That's what Channel 4's all about. And this year, they've got Jamie Oliver. I mean, I won't watch it, obviously, but I think it's great that they've got Jamie because he's done more for this country than Vernon Kay.
I know I've got to say Royal Highness first time and then ma'am afterwards.
Over on BBC One at 6 o'clock, it's the Outtakes Christmas Special. Now, I love outtakes. I'm thinking of some now. I'm thinking of the one where Eamon Holmes is trying to do a link and this car keeps going past behind him and ruining the sound. It's very funny. Finally, Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without Little Britain. And on BBC One at 11 o'clock, there's an episode of Little Britain. And then right after that on ITV, there's a South Bank show all about Little Britain. Now, I used to know Matt and Dave way back when, and we used to hang out and chew the fat and come up with new ideas for characters and catchphrases. In fact, I remember one that I came up with. It was this Indian woman who works in a corner shop. And she says, "What are you wanting? Get out of my shop. What are you wanting?" And she keeps shitting everywhere. She shits on the shelves and shits on the food. And the customers are too embarrassed to say anything. So they just have to bring all this food up with shit all over it. And what are you wanting? I don't know why they never used it. Anyway, that's it from me. Hangovers are coming, hangovers are coming, hangovers are coming. Stop it. I'm going now. Bye.